Hey everyone, Rushlock here, and today we've got a post from Rixx on how to survive EVE Online. This is a bit of a repost from June 2021, but Rixx recently reposted it as it, we'll get into it here. This post was originally appeared in these pages back in 2018. I'm reposting it today because it remains as true now as it did back then. There are many ways to play EVE Online, and I'm not here to disparage any of them. I've always supported a wide variety of playstyles within EVE Online, and will continue to do so forever. But no matter how you choose to play this crazy game of ours, the truth of the matter is, it can break you, chew you up and spit you out. Over the past 10 years, I've watched this happen countless times, over and over again. Good players, great players, captains of industry, miners, builders, alliance leaders, metagamers, bloggers, you name it, and I've watched them all break, disappear, vanish into the ether. All while some players who should leave annoyingly stay. But Rixx, you say, how have you managed to stay so fabulous for so long? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's take a look at some wisdom I've learned over the past decade that I hope will help you stick with EVE for the long term. Because unlike what you might have heard, the only way to win at EVE is to never quit. Quitting isn't winning, it's quitting. Unless you come back at some point, which you are always welcome to do. Then you can just start right back up again with the winning. First bit here is slow down. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will your EVE career. Take your time, the universe isn't going anywhere, and I've seen too many hotheads burn themselves out by trying to become the greatest player in EVE all at once. It is great to be enthusiastic and passionate, but all you're going to do is get tired pretty quickly. EVE can be exhausting, especially if you take on any responsibilities. Be awesome, have fun, and remember that in EVE, slow and steady really does win the race. So the slow down one to me is really interesting because so much of what we see in games and in life right now is about instant gratification, the next hit of dopamine, and what can I get, now. And EVE certainly has moved in a direction over the years where the skill injectors and other choices like that, and easier to move accounts around or characters on accounts, you can get into anything you want in EVE if you swipe your credit card hard enough, out of the gates. And that doesn't really help a user or a new player stick to EVE. It gets them where they want to go so quickly that they're not invested in the process, and they disengage much more easily. Next one up is CCP Please. It's best if you think of CCP as simply a gaming company that happens to make EVE Online, and leave it at that. Yeah, it's cool that some of the devs will talk to you on Twitter, or engage with you on the forums, or smack your face over on Reddit. I'm not suggesting that you ignore that, far from it. What I am suggesting is avoiding the all too common pitfall of thinking CCP is going to do anything about your specific complaints, because they most likely are not. And you will get very, very frustrated by this and start to really hate them for it. Trust me, don't do this. There are people who work very hard at trying to make EVE the best game they can. Really. That is all there is to that. Don't read anything else into it. Down that path lies nothing but frustration. Man, this should be like, there's no way to enforce it, but mandatory reading for the subreddit, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, the subreddit is not the only place people screech and read. It's just a very focused echo chamber over there. Like, you've got a lot of folks who don't have the mental capacity to process that kind of comments or statement from Rixx here. You can't help them because they can't wrap their heads around it. It's not because they're stupid or there's something wrong with them that makes them less human. If anything, they're more human. They just lack the capacity or the ability to understand and separate that their individual concern or complaint, no matter how many other people agree with them, on a single platform or in an, that's why the echo chamber is created. CCP is not going to go, oh man, these guys in this Reddit forum are really angry about this. We should redo everything. Now, this is obviously the general rule, not the exception. We've all seen, not just with EVE, but with other games, terrible changes get fixed by community pointing things out that may have been overlooked. We've also seen terrible changes to games happen because too much attention and validity was granted to people who were just loud about something that they didn't like for personal reasons, or personal game-based reasons. But yeah, Rixx touches on the CCP Please idea. And there's just a lot of people out there that unfortunately, even though they're the minority, they're very vocal and they feel, I guess it's a heavy word, entitled, but it applies that individuals within the company or even the company itself owes them something because you paid a subscription fee. When you pay your sub fee for any MMO, you're paying for current game state in current time. The company doesn't incur a debt to you to fix things that are to your own personal benefit. All right, next point up here is friends. Make friends everywhere. In-game, out of game, in school, at work, at player meets. Make lots of friends. We all need them. And so will you if you plan on playing EVE for any length of time. Nothing is more frustrating than being ganked and having no one to talk to about it. So do the right thing and join a corporation of the people that enjoy doing the thing that you enjoy doing. Hang out with them. Talk to them. Learn stuff. It really, really does work. And it's something that I think is a bit of a hurdle in EVE Online nowadays, because when I started, at least in 09, is that correct? Yeah, in 09, communicating in-game was the primary function and feature, or method, I should say, for having those interactions. Nowadays, we play EVE, but we communicate mostly out of game, at least from my perspective. You know, obviously I'm very skewed and biased with that, with Twitch and Discord and Twitter and social media in general. But there's definitely been a shift over the years of seeing that communication happen less and less in game, which hyper-intensifies the whole dehumanization of the other players in game, and so you see fewer and fewer connections made in game. Again, this is, you know, rules versus exception. I'm sure there are exceptions where people are still having great interactions in game and joining corporations from it and having those step-by-step instances, but it's happening less and less, and it's less and less realistic to think that it's going to continue happening in game when, again, most communication happens outside the game. Or maybe I should say most meaningful, you know, conversation or interaction happens outside the game. Let's see. Take micro breaks. EVE can sometimes really suck you in, and before you know it, you've just spent 3 months straight single-handedly moving an entire alliance's assets from one dark, damp place to another. It happens. I've discovered over the past 10 years that taking small breaks from EVE is the best thing. What that means is totally dependent on your life, commitments, and whatnots. Everyone is different, and my schedule may not work for you, and yours may not work for me. Find out what works for you. EVE runs 24/7 minus downtime, but you can't. Walk away every so often and enjoy life. It helps. This is something that's really interesting for a game like this. It's a sandbox that is 24/7, where it's very easy for someone to develop an unhealthy perspective of every time I step away from the game, I'm falling behind, right? From a sales or marketing standpoint, it's fantastic. It's like we get the user in, we get them hooked, and now they feel, right? The feels that we need to create. But we've got them to feel something, and that something is urgency. They need to be at that keyboard as much as possible to have their uptime up to get their tasks done, so on and so forth. What Rixx touches on here is you need to disengage. Whether it's, you know, look, I'm playing this game sweaty 20 hours a day, you know, maybe consider you need to find a block of time that you don't play the game at all and you do something else. If you lose perspective and you get too immersed in something, not just EVE, but anything like this, it can become very, very unhealthy very, very quickly. Next one up is goals. It is great to have goals inside of EVE because often EVE can be a weirdly goal-free game. For example, my goal is to be the last player left. I'm kidding, sorta. In reality, my goals would be very boring to most people. There are small things I need to accomplish in the near future, like moving a Moros from high-sec to our low-sec base, or defending our citadel, stuff like that. But I'm always goal-oriented in EVE. I think it helps you keep you focused and thinking about the future. Goals are huge in EVE, and Rixx touches on the whole idea of the game being goal-free. That's why I often tell new players that come through the Twitch chat that this is what makes EVE different. A lot of games are a lot more linear. I don't mean this in a negative or derogatory way. It's just a more common game design philosophy of talk to an NPC, get your task, do your task, get your reward, rinse and repeat. Excuse me. EVE doesn't do that. EVE puts you into the sandbox, gives you some tools, tells you good luck. I don't know how many people I come through the Twitch chat over the years going, well, I finished the tutorial, what do I do next? And that's what we have to teach them, is that this is a self-goal setting system for it. Excuse me, and that can be a huge adjustment for a lot of players. Next up is have fun. Whatever you are doing in-game, no matter how serious it might be, find a way to let go and have some fun. Try something new. Fly something different. Go somewhere new. Whatever it is, do it and enjoy it. I am constantly trying new things, or flying new ships and fits, often to hilarious results, or derping myself into stupid fights I can't hope to win. There we go. Much better. Last week I tackled a Drake and a Natron. I almost had him. If you aren't enjoying EVE, eventually you'll grow tired of it. And maybe you should. It might not be for you. It certainly isn't for everyone. Man, this is huge too. Like, EVE already has a retention issue just from the overwhelming nature of it to a new user. And when you put on top of that, it just won't be everyone's cup of tea. Like, permaloss can be too big for a lot of people, arguably most people. So when you already have that negative slants going in that most people aren't going to enjoy your product in the first place, even if they try it, you then have to worry about making sure that they find their niche and find their fun. Let's see. Man, the big one here at the end, don't be a dick. Despite his reputation, Eve is very unforgiving of a-holes. You might not think that it is, because at any one time, it seems that Eve is full of them. But in the long run, they don't last. It's true. I can go back and reread old blog posts about people and then look them up in-game today, and guess what? 9 times out of 10, they no longer play. Some take longer than others, but eventually almost every single jerk ends up leaving the game. All while the most awesome people tend to last a really long time. In the final analysis, the good guys do indeed finish last. It's math. You can't argue about it. I think this is a good one to touch on is like, you're going to have some really, really bad interactions in game, especially as we go forward in the future with, we talked about this earlier about communication happening in and out of game. Most of your in-game communication is going to be against an enemy or some kind of demonized individual that maybe your alliance block has vilified the enemy, like, let's tear them all down, they have no value, they have no redeemable qualities, and so you get really, really toxic in-game chats very, very quickly. But when you zoom out or zoom in, I guess, from your perspective into individuals, the more toxic ones do typically burn out because it isn't a sustainable system or method. They don't have goals anymore. They've lost that. Their goal is to have bad interactions. And when your goal is to have bad interactions, you kind of just feed on yourself and burn yourself out of it. Rixx wraps up with, everyone leaves eventually, nothing lasts forever. So I'm not suggesting that people stop playing Eve are in the wrong. Not in any way. We all have to do what we have to do. But if you want to try and play Eve for a long time, these are some solid pieces of advice to follow. They work for me, and I suspect they will work for you as well. Eve forever. So I think this is a pretty good post. I like to cover things like this that I don't think cover just EVE Online, but are applicable to other MMOs as well in terms of concept. And I think a lot of these talking points that Rixx goes over does exactly that. So if any of these talking points, go through them yourself, share in the comments down below. If you can, start your comment with one of the names of the categories here to kind of put us in a better framing for what you're commenting on. But I'd love to hear your guys' stories in terms of your goal setting, maintaining your fun focus over any amount of time, whether it's a couple of months or a couple of years or even a couple of decades. If you've ever had that friends or CCP interaction where you kind of caught yourself and had the self-awareness to know, okay, this is probably a good or a bad way of handling this. Also, the slow down factor. Did you ever have a super hyper, oh, I've got to get this done, or the game is now all encompassing, I'm playing 20 hours a day for 6 days a week, and then something happened and you hit a wall somewhere. Share those stories if you're able to down in the comments below. Hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you next time.